Hello and welcome to the Hands Up If You're Human podcast, an ongoing series of conversations dedicated to exploring and celebrating the messy reality of being human. The truth is there is nothing any of us can think, say, do or experience that isn't 100% human. So it's time to drop the shame and the guilt, accept everything that we are and start working to create the lives we really want to live. My name is Wyndham. I am the Blueprint Coach. And this episode, as well as being joined by Terry, if you're watching this on YouTube, I am joined by a special guest. Former corporate buyer, monthly columnist, guest podcast host, humanist celebrant, LinkedIn local host, franchise consultant, business mentor, founder of Get Ahead VA, and author of the book Virtually Yours, Your Path to a Flexible Future by Running Your Own Virtual Assistant Agency, I am delighted to be joined by Rebecca Newenham.
Boom.
How are you, Rebecca?
I love that intro.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You missed wife, friend, mother.
That's the first question.
Oh, is it?
That is the first question.
How funny.
That's my little Wyndham window. What's missing from that list?
Love a Wyndham window. Yeah, and it's interesting. I immediately felt that was missing.
Yeah.
So my role as a wife to Martin and a mother to our three girls, and also I guess a daughter to my parents.
It's interesting, isn't it? Well, because they're just, I say just, what's come up in a couple of the conversations I've had is one of my guests didn't like any of them. They were all accurate, but they viewed them as labels that have a constrictive sort of limiting factor to them.
Interesting, yeah. And I think for me it was rather lovely hearing you. I mean, I know you know me, but it was hearing that sort of all the different parts to me. And often if I'm having a conversation, I'm in one part of that. So to have it all summarised like that.
And an expanding list as well, because the humanist celebrant is a new thing, right?
Yeah, and I don't like the word passion project, but I guess it's been an add-on to things that aren't work-related.
Why don't you like the term passion?
I think it sounds a bit mad. Well, I am taking this really. I think it, to me, it almost doesn't feel like I'm taking it seriously when I really am.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because it puts me in mind of almost a similar sort of thing as self-publishing was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was like a vanity thing. It was considered if you weren't good enough to be published down the formal route, then you were just playing at it. And passion project almost feels to me like that kind of, it's just a thing on the side. It's not like I spend a little bit of time doing it. I love it, but it doesn't carry huge weight.
Absolutely.
It obviously does.
Yeah.
Okay, so this season we are talking about finding your freedom.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you?
Finding my freedom. I think actually, funny enough, the celebrant thing has been part of me finding my freedom, because my three girls, the youngest has just started at uni, so life for us has transitioned since September, in the sense that it's not traditional anymore.
Right.
And we're now towards the end of February, and I struggled last week when it was half term because I didn't have a girl to go to the cinema with like I would traditionally have done, for example. So for me, there's a freedom of not having the mummy badge in the traditional way, but that being said, I'm still needed. So I don't feel like I've got sort of freedom from everything, but freedom for me at the moment is giving me a different side and an opportunity to look at what I'm currently doing and what I could do differently.
That's really interesting. In what areas and what respect?
So not necessarily in work, but more in my life balance. I think because as a role as a mother, having, our eldest daughter's 23, I've been a mummy and I've been needed at home for 23, 24 years. And suddenly I'm not needed on a day-to-day basis. So I'm looking at the freedom to enable me to do things that aren't necessarily work-related. And I think having set up a business from home has been work as well. So it's sort of what other freedoms and what other things could I bring into my life that are slightly different.
Lovely. That is brilliant. So I want to talk about those, because that is by the nature of time, your children are now away more than they're at home.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that creates a period in time where things differ. So I want to come to that. But what I would also really like to do is talk about the period in your life where you went. I started by saying you're a former corporate buyer. So
Yeah.
you had a corporate career.
Yes.
And then you changed to setting up and running your own business. And I know that's evolved as well. So talk to me about a little bit about the corporate side, and then what happened, and then why you started your own business.
So following my degree, I did a couple of jobs, but my passion was always I did a business studies degree, and I did 2 periods of work experience, placements. They were both within a retail buying role. So that really encouraged me. And I did a couple of other things after uni, and I thought, no, this is really where my passion lies. It lay, as much as I loved the role, I didn't like the corporate restriction.
Okay.
And I always felt I didn't feel particularly comfortable. I didn't look at my boss and think, I'd love to have your job. It wasn't particularly inspiring. I loved the people aspect. I loved the marketing. I loved sort of bringing product to market that I knew people wanted to buy. I loved that bit. But I always remember saying to my mum, I just don't feel at home in that kind of corporate world. I found it quite restricting.
And what were those restrictions?
I think not necessarily being told what to do, but there was a sense of just rigidity. And I possibly felt there were always appraisals and there's always something. And I always felt I was sort of watched in a funny sort of way. As Terry's just given me the evil eye. Who are you?
Okay, so almost that kind of micromanagement?
Yes. And I did used to sort of, and people, I always felt that the senior level above me, they always had their favourites, and I never really felt that I slotted into that. I worked with some brilliant people, and I've made some wonderful connections, and often they were with my suppliers. So one of my closest friends now was one of my suppliers at Sainsbury's. So I've known her for 25 years. So it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the relationships and the connections I was making. I just didn't feel that world was where I wanted to stay for my whole career. And I think I've always observed my mum, who trained as a primary school teacher. She had me, my brother, and then she ran a tutorial agency from home. So I've been brought up in an environment that showed me you don't have to stick to one thing. And as I said, she always said to me, you'll find your thing, as she did about finding a man. She said, you'll find the right one. And it's just interesting. I think she gave me a confidence to think I don't have to stick at this. And as it happened, I had then an 8-year career break while I had the girls. And Martin, my husband, we talked a lot about what we wanted life to be like for them. And I was in a privileged enough position to say, actually, yes, I'm going to have time. And we have 3 daughters. When we, again, feel, without sounding sort of cringy about it, I had no problem getting pregnant. I had the girls, that all mapped out. So I felt a sense of privilege that I was able to have that time with them. And I was able to really embrace it and do things I wanted to do, but knowing that there would be something else I would go on to afterwards.
I'm not feeling the desperate need to know what that was.
No, I was quite excited about that. So I had Izzy first, and then when she was 1, I did a humanist counselling training, part of the foundation, to see whether I wanted to sort of train as a humanist counsellor, which my mum had gone on to do.
Right.
And that was lovely because I was then part of a different community. I was probably one of the youngest, and again made some interesting connections there, but quickly realised actually no, that wasn't what I wanted to do, but it was hugely beneficial for me to have something totally unrelated to being a first-time mum and different to my sort of corporate life.
Yeah, it's really interesting that role your mother played, and I don't obviously the role of mother, but even just saying something like that you'll find your thing, and not, what I'm getting is that there was no kind of narrative around what that thing would be or could be or had to be.
Exactly.
It could be, you'll find it.
Yeah, and she gave me that confidence just to relax and be in the moment rather than searching for the next thing.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I am quite good about being in the moment. I like to push myself. I like to know there are other things, but equally I feel very grateful in each scenario for what I've got or what I've had.
That's interesting. And do you think that's played a part in why there are so many parts to your professional life?
Yes, yeah. And I've had a confidence, Boston's 10 years older than me. We were in a position financially where we agreed that together that this is what would be the right thing for our family unit, which was for me to be at home supporting the girls, but having total balance to do things. I remember we worked out that it was lovely for the girls to do nursery twice a week. So they would do 8 till 5, 8 till 6. And I had one day with each of them on their own, one day on my own for me. So I've always crafted that. So yeah, Martin and I worked well together in that way.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever feel I was missing out. I've always been good at my friendships and doing other things.
That's amazing. It's almost brought me to a stop, because most people I talk to have had these big kind of challenges they've had to address. We're recording this the day after the episode with Chris Abbey went out.
Yes.
And he had a successful corporate career and then practically burnt out and too much stress and all this kind of stuff. And the universe pushed him in the direction he ended up needing to go. But what I'm getting from you is that actually from your mother, you were provided this environment of you can explore, you can try and change your mind, and you can do these different things, and you can invest in your time and effort in yourself to find whatever that thing is.
Yeah, oh no, totally.
Which is amazing. Okay, so you had a period in corporate buying.
Yes.
And you then had an 8-year career break to have your children.
Mm-hmm.
What happened next?
So I guess probably when our youngest daughter was born, I realised that I wouldn't have any more. And also life was progressing. So then it was about, what do I want to do next? And again, my mum had been quite interesting over that, saying, again, you'll find it. And I think I probably always knew I wanted to have an element of control and flexibility. So therefore, what could that look like? And I didn't want to go back into that corporate role. I love the buying bit, but I felt that was a chapter that I could sort of walk away from. So then took aspects of what I loved, which was in the marketing and the branding, to then set up Get Ahead with a view to it being always bigger than me. So I think when I look at other business owners, often if they're setting up something for themselves, they historically have set up under their surname or done something. Well, for me, it was Martin and I talked a lot about it. It's like, right, if we're going to do something, and he's always been very much by my side, sort of steering the ship with me. It was sort of like, what are we going to call it? And I remember being quite cringy, finding it all a bit cringy at the beginning. And we used to refer to the business, well, Get Ahead can do that. It's like, it's really me. But it was a vision we both had about, Get Ahead, your virtual assistant, which is now Get Ahead, your virtual agency. It's going to be bigger than me. And I was quite open to seeing where that would take me.
That's interesting as well. So you were always aware it was going to be bigger than you.
Yeah.
And actually, interestingly, that your business is, well, actually explain the nature of your business, both when you started it and then as you kind of scale it.
Yes. So I identified a gap in the UK market for providing remote admin, PA support to growing businesses.
And when was this?
That was back in 2010, was when we sort of officially launched. So in the year prior to that, I did quite a lot of research. It was very strong in America. So I thought, actually, this would be an opportunity for me to get to know the local business community. I'm in Guildford in Surrey, quite a thriving environment. So I thought, well, I'll just give it a go. And I did a training course, which weirdly was just a day in London. And a friend of mine was quite keen to do a similar thing elsewhere. So we went to that together. It just gave me a confidence that actually I might as well just try it. So Get Ahead was born under that name. I tried and I started supporting clients myself, but I don't have a PA background. It wasn't my bag, but I knew I needed to try elements of it to test the water. And I loved the building the logo, and I used a friend of mine to do that. Those were all the bits that have always excited me, the branding and what we look like. And then the communication, so the networking piece. I was a little bit apprehensive as to what that might look like, having remembered those awful presentations I had to do at school and at uni. They were never my bag, but it wasn't until I started doing more of that I realised actually if it's something you believe in, then it comes naturally, and the networking has proven to be a common thread through everything I've done over the, in the last 14 years, and it's what I ironically enjoy the most.
Where's where we met at the LinkedIn local.
Yeah,
I remember those first couple of events I came to as a person who was trying to reform my relationship with networking.
Yeah.
Because my professional career in sales, I'd been to networking events where the instruction from my bosses was, you have to sell, you have to sell, you have to sell. And everybody in the room was doing the same thing. And it was just this awful environment where you don't believe in what you're selling. You don't, because your priority is that you don't connect with the people, you connect with what they're trying to sell you or not.
Yep.
And what I found certainly in LinkedIn local in Guildford is way more relaxed. Everybody, you give people permission that first meeting. Go, take the pressure, just get to know people, not businesses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's been, I've learned that the hard way in a way, because I remember my first ever client was an all-women networking group, and I was doing the admin for her, and it just gave me a flavour as to what it could look like. And then she asked me to launch a group of hers in Guildford. I remember being petrified because, again, I thought, how am I going to stand up in front of everyone? How am I going to say it? And I remember a number of my friends came and supported me on the day, and it wasn't until I'd done the first one that I realised actually I can do this because I know what I'm doing, and it's not like some sort of complicated thing that I resonated with school when I used to get hot and bothered about it.
So, excuse me, that when you say it wasn't until after I'd done the first one that I realised, actually this is well within my capability.
Yeah.
What was the build up to that first one like for you? Because I'm also interested in so much of what you're saying, but also this idea of freedom from, what we need to create freedom from in order to move forward.
I think I've often, and I think we've touched on it in sessions we've had, you know, the good girl in me wants to do the right thing. So I think that played quite a big role in, well, I've got to launch this event, I've got to get people there. And as I started advertising it and promoting it, I realised, yes, I did know people and people wanted to support me, and actually this was going to be all right. And I've always had that lovely feeling of, oh, I'm going to meet a new person today. And I'm doing a presentation tomorrow about LinkedIn, and that's going to be one of my things, the sort of theme within that is, you know, wherever you go, have that open mind, because you're going to meet somebody you've not met before, and that brings so much joy in itself in terms of different people coming into your sort of community. But I do remember getting a bit of a sweat on, thinking on, and then having to plan my outfit and all of those sorts of things, from having been a mum in the playground to suddenly, you know, putting my nice outfits on. But then I suddenly realised actually I'm getting joy and energy from this, so it's been a rather nice addition.
And when you say you suddenly realised you were getting joy and energy, was it like a moment of, oh, actually this is nice? I mean, there is a side to, yes, it's stressful and it's something I haven't done, but there is this excitement rather than necessarily fear. Yes,
and excitement from the hosting. And I've recognised only recently probably I'm much better as a host than I am as a guest at events.
Interesting.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
It's like being in charge. I like the fact that I know most people, or they know me, and it just takes the pressure off. But then I'm also quite critical sometimes of the way events are hosted, which is why I love your feedback about being made to feel relaxed. And I've probably over the years done so many different ones that this has enabled me, the LinkedIn local certainly has enabled me to craft and curate my own flavour of a meeting. Because I think we've all been to those ones where you arrive, you're queuing up, you get a badge, and you're just left to your own you're left to your own devices, and we're all adults, and okay, we should be able to manage, or we should. The word "should" doesn't necessarily need to be there, because actually, if someone's hosting it, they need to take ownership of how you as a visitor are going to experience their event. And I think sometimes people forget that they're too tied up in the admin that they're doing for launching something rather than the experience.
Yeah, it is one of those things, how many people find even the idea of networking, walking into a room full of 50 people you don't know and just talking to them.
diving in.
It's like, what am I going to say? Doesn't matter what you say.
No,
You know,
no,
it
no.
really
I think
doesn't matter.
when you realise that,
Yeah.
and you know, on the way here, I've had someone message me about the meeting tonight saying, "How many have you got coming?" That really winds me up because I've sort of gone back and said, "Well, I've got 80 booked on, and I probably expect 50." I said, "But it's not about numbers."
Mm.
And
Yeah, and it's like, given these meetings are 2 hours,
yes, tops.
I mean, how many people do you think you can have a conversation
A
with?
decent conversation within that time.
Exactly. And it was one of the things that I really liked about your networking is it's not this pressured, you've got 60 seconds,
No.
you pitch for 30, they pitch for 30, and then you move on. That kind of stuff doesn't interest me because I'm interested in people, not necessarily what it is they choose to do. We started by talking about these labels.
Yeah.
Not that interested, really, apart from the fact that that all feeds into who this person is at the heart of it.
I agree, but it's not led by that label. Yeah, and so many people don't listen. I remember recently being at an event, someone just sort of ramming their business card at me, and it's like, and I found myself saying, "Well, what do you want me to do with that?" It's this sort of
I've got a wobbly tail. You can solve this in the park and it will sort that out.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Okay, so there's a couple of there's more than a couple of things. You were saying when you started your business, you were aware of the things you enjoyed about your corporate job, the elements that you wanted to bring in, but there was also this idea that there's a gap in the market. This is not my sweet spot, being a VA. That's not, I'm not best placed of everybody to provide admin assistance. Yes, I know I'm going to have to do that to get to understand it. What then happened?
I quickly realised and identified that clients were asking for other services beyond admin, for example. So good old Excel spreadsheets, which again isn't my forte. So then it was like, right, actually I can, and that got me into my buyer mindset about, well, what's the demand? Therefore, what should we provide to fix and meet that?
Yeah.
And I recognised as well from with my mummy hat on that there were lots of women and obviously some guys at school who were not able to go back into their corporate role for reasons very much around, being available for the children. And I identified then people that could potentially work with me. Didn't really want to do too much too close to home, but then recognised that there's a whole freelancer world that I hadn't tapped into. And then momentum started happening and people coming to me to say, "Oh, I'd be interested in working with you." And a couple of people I used to work with at Superdrug joined me. So that's when the sort of the freelance team started to build up, and I recognised that I could then say, "Yeah, we can help with social media," and then find the social media managers to give them that support.
Right. So the experience you've had through your corporate buying career shaped your approach to be, I'm not going to provide what I want to provide per se.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to what people want to buy, and then I'm going to provide them that.
Yeah. And I'm going to market this business, and I'm not going to constantly be looking at what other people are doing. And that's been a big thing for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the VA world is one that I've never felt hugely connected to. I'm not speaking out of turn, but there are places for everyone, aren't there? Communities, and I've made some really lovely connections through it, but I have wanted to do it my way.
Okay, talk to me about this, because that's a very strong thing to be able to say, is I've not looked at other people doing this and how they're doing it, because I'm going to do it my way.
So I obviously did research, possibly looking in America more than here, but at the time, 14 years ago, there weren't very many VAs or virtual assistants around. So I was doing quite a refreshing job at providing that level of support. And certainly in the last 10 years, especially since lockdown, there are VAs popping up everywhere. And there's always enough room for everybody. But I haven't wanted or felt the need to waste energy thinking, "Oh, they're doing this, I better do that."
And what do you put that down to? How do you maintain that?
I think that's my personality.
Okay.
So I've got a sense of, I suppose a true sense of myself, and not needing to compare myself with other people.
Wow.
Without sounding, but
No,
obviously I do have it, and I do look and forever going, my tummy looks big, or do that sort of a physical comparison. But from a work point of view, I felt comfortable doing what we're doing, always open for advice, and hence, I've often said, I wouldn't be married or have any friends left if I hadn't had coaching or mentoring, and that's been a big part of supporting me and enabling me to question what I do rather than having to go to contemporaries, I guess. To ask.
What I'm kind of taking from everything you've said is this is about finding freedom, and there are two components, I think, to that. One is freedom from what are the things that are stopping us, and then we'll come to your freedom to, which you spoke about at the beginning. You're now at a time when you can create more space for more things. But what I'm taking is you've had the ability right from the word go. Once you decided this is what you wanted to do, you freed yourself from having to know it all, having to do it, and being able to recognize where I could do with some help here. I'm going to go find the appropriate help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So finding appropriate help to support me as a leader of a business, because obviously I've never done it before, but also help from the team. And it was lovely when I could see the impact that I was having on team members, but also on clients, as well as they started to really blossom and grow with our support. And the networking has definitely opened lots of doors for me, and I'm curious / nosy. That's helped quite a lot.
Okay, yeah.
Because then that's the thing, isn't it? It all boils down ultimately to communication and how interested and authentic you are.
Yeah.
And I've loved all those different opportunities, doing a business exhibition, just finding people. And again, I'm doing another talk this week around my role as a connector. And that has come from my interest / nosiness about people, and then thinking, I can bring those two together, and that happens, and I do it naturally. It's not forced, and I think that's the thing. I think what this business has given me is to do things my way that come naturally to me. And obviously I do put myself out in my comfort zone. I'm doing a talk tomorrow, which I am really looking forward to, but in a few years ago that would have petrified me, but I have been sort of pushed myself to do that. I remember talking at the office show, which was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, in a big auditorium, and the lady that suggested I did it gave me a lovely tip about, engage with your audience before you stand on with your microphone and start talking to people. And that was my one piece of advice that I've sort of taken to really help me have that engagement level when you're talking, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's I did have something came to mind, and then you said something else, and it's marginally derailed me. But I think that this idea of recognizing where you are strong, either naturally or because you've worked to be strong, leaning into that and getting other people to come along with you to fill the gaps in where you're less strong. Okay, so you start the business, you start by providing services direct. You then realize, actually, there's an opportunity here. I will develop or bring together a team of virtual experts. You then want to grow the business. But there's only one Rebecca Newenham.
So that's when, so scaled it, had clients around the country, but then quite rightly, as you say, recognised that in order to scale it and get real momentum, we needed to have regional offices. So I was a bit resistant to franchising initially, but worked with a consultant, and that really helped me to understand that actually franchising wasn't as scary or unethical as maybe I was led to believe. And again, I've done it the right way and work with the right consultants and lawyers to make what we have an official offering, and we're now accredited through British Franchise Association. So that's opened a whole nother world to franchising. And again, I'm sort of doing my thing within that. But the scaling was really interesting, and again, that's enabled me to give, again, primarily women opportunities to run their own get ahead business. And I'm not precious over it either. I sort of knew that if I was going down this route, I needed to hand over the reins to different personalities in order to take our business further. But what I get is a huge sense of pride when I'm hearing people talking about us and I don't even know who they are because they're clients of the team.
Yeah.
The wider team.
Again, you're so fascinating because you, on the one hand, you were saying, I don't really like to be told what to do. I like to be in control.
Yeah.
And then as part of your business, you knew you had to let that go.
Yes.
To some degree,
I guess
absolutely. To a large degree.
Yeah.
How do you, you don't have to explain anything, but how do you explain that those two things being so seemingly seamlessly
I think it depends on what aspect it is. So I'm hugely all over what things look like, so our branding and things, but the actual getting the clients and going off and developing something themselves, I love that sense of just empowering, as I have done with our girls as well. It's sort of, you give a grounding, but then it's absolutely, they've got to find their way. So it's almost like an extended part of the family with the different regions. And also I've got limited time. So that's another thing. I've been quite good over time at sort of compartmentalizing things, knowing that in order to scale and grow, I can't be all over everything. And that's not attractive either. It's sort of that opportunity.
One of the things you didn't like about the corporate career.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, so now the business is partners, franchise partners.
Yes. Yeah.
What I find fascinating about you and your business is you were at a point in your life, as I understand it, you were at a point in your life after your 8-year career break where corporate wasn't going to work, the prescribed 9 to 5, all the restrictions of that kind of world were not going to work for you. So you created a business that would, and now through your franchise model, you're providing that same opportunity to anybody who is at a similar place where the traditional doesn't work. This is an alternative. Yeah,
absolutely. So that framework, but with a freedom to make it their own. Which is interesting.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm really interested in what is something that you find yourself consistently having to free yourself from.
I would say it sounds a bit, my phone. So the tech is, I'm a nightmare. So emails, anything, that's the good girl in me wanting to respond immediately. And I've tried so many different ways of trying, because I think leading something, running it, I want to be responsive as the business is to clients, and that I have that fear of missing out, and I mustn't miss an opportunity, but also I better quickly check.
And do you free yourself from that, or is that something you're aware of?
Something I'm aware of.
Circling it, and trying to figure it out. It's because you've used the term that good girl, which there's a book. Oh, I should have thought about this. Can't remember who it's by, but I will look to add it to the show notes and I'll share it with you as well. But it is kind of like breaking the good girl. Yeah.
What's the worst thing that's happened if I didn't reply to something? And occasionally I don't reply to things if it's not that interesting, but there is that thing. I think that's probably from the very beginning where you don't want to miss an inquiry or you don't want to miss out on something. And I do feel a draw then to check.
Yeah. Is it always from the professional perspective, or is it tech in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. Work emails, my Gmail's horrendous. I don't really know what goes in that, and that's sort of the personal one. And WhatsApp and messaging. I just like to have that thing of I want to respond to it quickly so it's done and it doesn't hang over me. Well, I've got some friends that sort of said, oh yeah, I haven't replied to, or look at their number of text messages they've got and it's, in the hundreds, while I have to be on it and reply. Yeah,
my Louisa has her professional email inbox is pristine. But everything filed, any no unanswered emails. Something at the end of the week, it's empty. Wow. And mine just has always just, you have 50,000 messages, and she freaks out when she sees the number. It's interesting, isn't it? Because that freedom from technology and this feeling of fear of missing out,
Yeah.
needing to respond, are all kind of symptoms of the overarching good girl
Yes.
piece.
Yeah.
And I think it's we're so strongly conditioned, not just women, guys are as well, in different ways. And I understand it's a very different kind of sets of pressures, or they are different, but we're so conditioned to defer and be responsive and, oh my God, I have to,
Yes.
somebody else's time is evidently more important than mine, therefore I'll quickly
Yes.
jump onto those things. This wasn't a planned question, but what are you doing about that good girl thing?
I think it's definitely got easier as I've got older, and I'm more mindful of it now. So I'm quite good at more boundaries. So, time blocking and things like Calendly have really helped me not be the one that has to lead a conversation to book a meeting in or something. So I think actually I've streamlined things a bit better. But I just observe my reaction. If someone asks me a question, I feel an obligation to reply. I probably need to calm down on that. Well, that's his work in progress.
And as you have 3 daughters, what's that been like? Or how, because you said you're in the same way that you set up your franchisees for success, you provide this solid bedrock that they can then leap forward from. The same is true with your
absolutely,
daughters.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting, having 3 of the same sexes, you'd assume they're all so similar, but they're not. They're in different parts. They're in the different pecking order in the family, in the sense of the eldest has driven everything and done it her way. And I just find all of those different aspects of their personality so interesting. But I made that choice. Martin and I made the choice that we were available to them, and I'm proud of the communication we've got with them. Sometimes too much.
Ooh.
No, not too much. But it's just
how to embarrass your daughters.
But it's more the ease of availability, I suppose. It's FaceTime, WhatsApp, iMessage. What's she doing? I'm looking on Find My Friends. Why are you there? They'll be probably saying, what's she doing at Wyndham? But it's just. But I love the sense of connection. So that's that common thread for me. Connection at work, with my family, and then with my friends as well. And that's a powerful. That's why I do what I do, I guess. That gives me the energy.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, freedom 2. You said at the beginning that because now your youngest daughter is away at university, it feels to me like these are really important punctuation points. I guess in anybody's life, if they have kids, when you have them, the point where you're not tied to them 24/7, and you get to kind of reintegrate into a bit more Rebecca rather than mum. And then again, at the point the last of them goes to university. So what is this creating freedom to? What are you looking to create?
When people say, what hobbies have you got? I often freak out at that question and think, oh, well, I'm not going.
I don't whittle wood.
I don't knit in the corner every night. But I've always been good with exercise, and that's been a big thing for me, making time for that. So when I hear podcasts where people are saying, well, I just don't have the time to do something, I suppose I've been very disciplined in that. But the freedom now will be something like the Celebrant, so perhaps having the opportunity to do that at a weekend when I might have been doing, sporting things with the girls or something. So I think for me, it's having a little bit more space. Rather than, I guess in the week, it's always my diary drives what I do, but I also, as I said, time block and have some space. But I think at weekends, there sometimes is a pressure, or I put a pressure on what are we doing this weekend? And Martin will often say, nothing, I hope. And there's that sense of openness, which could freak me out in the past, because I think I also want to make every hour matter. But I'm learning now actually to have that space is really important.
So what does I talk a lot about mechanism and meaning.
And
that anything we do is a mechanism. and it is in service to a deeper meaning. Most of us don't tap into that deep, really understand what we're trying to create in that meaning space. Something like your celebrant role. This is something you
Just, yes.
So you're recently qualified,
Yeah.
but you were saying you did the first part of a qualification years previously.
Well, no, that was counselling, human.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I
Okay.
phrased it wrong. Yeah.
No, that misunderstanding on my part. Okay, but are you aware of the deeper meaning this particular mechanism is serving?
Yeah, I think I absolutely adore babies and young children, and that for me is possibly what I'm missing.
Right.
Before being a granny. But no, I've got I think my father, all our family, they all have been in education, so just love children, and I find it really interesting. So I think I see it as a privilege to be part of someone's journey with their own family. And we had a celebrant, we had a naming ceremony for each of the girls, and it's something we still talk about now. I'm still in touch with the celebrant. It was quite an important part of that initial stage of parenting. And it's a community that's nothing to do with me socially or at work. It feels like a totally different sort of relationship. And I also think it could just be a one-off connection with a family, and then it's not, I won't necessarily see them again, which in a way can be quite refreshing.
Yeah. Because I guess in all these other areas, there is a consistency and a repeating of those relationships or the relationship interactions.
Yes. Yeah. So I did an exercise class last night, and a guy walked past and said hello to me, and I just couldn't place where I knew him from. And my friend that I met at the class said, "You know everyone." And I have had that feeling growing, having the family in Guildford for 20 odd years, you do know people. But it's those little reminders sometimes. I think, I love it. I love that connection with the community, but it would be quite nice to be a bit more anonymous sometimes.
I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather was the local GP, or one of the local GPs. It's his practice. And everywhere we went, someone stopped my mum, and she knew everybody. She was a primary school teacher, and she knew everybody. And as a kid, I remember just kind of holding her hand, going, "Oh, we're going to be here for another 20 minutes, never getting anywhere you want to get to." It's interesting. So that every now and then you wish you could be a little bit more anonymous.
Well, sometimes I think, and so that's where this role will give me. Give me a sense of status, I suppose, when I'm leading it, and it's lovely to have a role in something, but it's also something that I don't need to keep nurturing, because once I've done it, I'm off. And
that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that before, because it's a really important role
for that half an hour.
Yeah,
and I'm going to find that quite hard then going bye.
But it's not about you.
It's not about me.
It's about the parents and the child and the.
So I remember when I was doing my training, and one of my scripts was a bit I and we, and it was saying you can't, it's about the child, it's not about what I might think. And it's so interesting. So it's putting that ego to bed.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you for all of that.
Oh, that's been lovely.
I think it's a really interesting one, because for me, actually, from a professional perspective, for me, embody finding your freedom. Because you decided not to go, you identified what wasn't going to work, traditional corporate. You decided that the things you really wanted, you didn't want to do for somebody else, do it for yourself. You tried all of the things you needed to do to build the business, then had the ability to free yourself from having to do the bits that you weren't brilliant at, get other people to do that. And you, through the franchise model, because your business, you have regional partners who essentially do the role you did to begin with by connecting businesses with subject matter experts in those areas. That for me is this beautiful ecosystem of you creating something that works for you, having identified all the bits that need to work for you because you have a young family, and then finding a way to grow your business and enable and empower other people
Yeah.
to do the same thing. I think it's brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
So, question for you. Well, it's a question. Is there anything else you kind of want to share around your path and adventure to the life you have now, which is, like we were saying, you're at this point where you have creative freedom too. What would you say to someone who is struggling? And then what is something someone can do if they're feeling trapped and constricted?
I think the biggest thing for me is always talking to somebody or identifying someone that could help me, or a trusted space to share how I'm feeling, which goes into that coaching and mentoring piece. It doesn't have to be something that you pay for either. And I think it goes back into being really honest with yourself about what you might want, and if you don't know what you want, it's having that open discussion. It's the communication piece. And I think I've been fortunate to have been brought up in a home where we've always been very open, and so communication, and I've had a voice. But I also get that sometimes people don't have the opportunity to have a voice or feel heard. And Martin's been amazing at nurturing what we've got and giving me that freedom to sort of do things and make the mistakes and build something bigger for us for later on.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah, and what all of that for me ties back to is this sense of, oh, you will find your thing. You will find the right people, the right man, the right whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And if that's the message that is free of time constraint of, and let me funnel you down this particular route because I think it's going to be down here. None of that.
No. What will be will be.
The freedom to explore and then.
Yeah, which is a wonderful gift to have been given, and that's what I hope I've given to our girls, in the sense of supported them, give them opportunity, support them in what choices they make, but never dictate things. And I think that's where I've never had a dictator say, "No, you've got to do it this way," which is, I feel very privileged to not have that scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's very easy for people. It can be quite easy for people to remove themselves from, say, a corporate career where you are having diktats given to you. You have to do it this way. Start their own thing and not embody the essence of why they left. So it can quite easily become micromanagers and a little bit dictatorial. It's why I'm really fascinated by your kind of balance of control. That you control what you have to control and what is super close to you, and then you
I'm not interested in that that I get bored quite easily, Wyndham, I think, and I like that sense of things moving on rather than sort of looking, I might lose interest then. So I think I've identified quite early on what I'm interested in and where I can support, and I'm fascinated by people and how I can support them, but I don't really want the minute detail, which is why I didn't hugely enjoy the client delivery.
Yeah.
So I like that freedom of being able to pick and choose what I did, and loving that connection when I had some work for one of the experts to do and seeing them both benefiting from that, and then I could walk away from it. So,
brilliant. Absolutely love it. Rebecca, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Where can people find you if they're interested in mentoring or all of those things, speaking opportunities, whatever it might be? How can people get hold of you? How can they understand a bit more about Get Ahead, whatever it might be?
Yes, so I would say LinkedIn is probably the easiest place to find me. Hang out there a lot of the time, and then I've got my personal website, so RebeccaNewenham.com, and then Get Ahead VA.
Thank you very much. And I would wholly recommend looking Rebecca up. It's, for me, it was one of those, when we moved to this area, getting to know you has opened up
Oh, lovely.
so many people and opportunities, and so I'm, for one, am enormously grateful.
Oh.
And full disclosure, we have worked together
and
as well.
I'm hugely grateful to you for the support you've given me in sort of the messaging and sort of really nailing my proposition as we've evolved. So,
yeah, it's been brilliant. So I highly recommend you checking it out. And if you are interested in, don't forget there is the book, Virtually Yours. Where can people get the book?
Oh yes, on my website or through Amazon.
There you go. And with that, thank you so much for watching and listening. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, so you can get in touch with the show via my email, which is, I nearly gave you my personal email, but it is, I got distracted by my cat, which is handsupifyou'rehuman@gmail.com. Please like these episodes, share them with people you feel may benefit from the messages within. I'm going to promote Get Ahead. I know Rebecca is looking for more business partners, more franchise partners, more people looking to create this level of freedom in their own lives. I've met a number of the people who are business partners with you, and they are all A, wonderful people, and B, really looking for these elements of freedom in their life, and Get Ahead has enabled an awful lot of that. So check her out. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes. Rest easy over the next few days, and I wish you a joyful and peaceful few days, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.